What's going on, guys? It's Zach here. Bring you guys a fantasy football video. This one will be part two in the Week 17 start and sit video series. So we'll be doing three videos here. I already covered the first 5 games of Week 17, the fantasy football championship week, and then obviously tomorrow you guys will get the remaining 6 games. So I've done a 5 game, and a 6 game breakdown, just so you guys get a little bit more in-depth breakdowns than what we normally did throughout the course of the regular season. Because obviously at this point in the season, all that really matters is obviously getting your roster constructed as much as you can. Really, all you can do is waivers, especially at this point in the season. And then it's all about just making sure we make those right start-sit decisions. So it's been a fun start to the week. We had a lot of just sort of news and notes around the league. A couple quarterback shakeups in Denver, Washington, Minnesota are all going to have new quarterbacks this week, along with New York. So we've got 4 new starting quarterbacks this week. I'll talk about those games and those teams when we get to those teams. But recording this Thursday night as well, we just had a really fun Thursday night football game. Surprisingly, we had a lot of points get scored between the Browns and the Jets. So obviously you might find yourself in a spot where you find yourself down quite a few points. Maybe you played against Brees Hall or David Njoku, or your opponent had the Browns defense. Or maybe someone had the balls to start Joe Flacco against you and it worked out. Or maybe you're on the flip side of that. Maybe you play Garrett Wilson, who underwhelmed or something like that. So we obviously have a little bit more information, but it's going to be a fun week here. And let's just get into the first 5 games. Then, of course, if you guys do have any specific start-sit questions, I'm here for you guys. Just let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to get you guys the best input possible. So it's been a lot of fun here. Let's make sure we just power through here. One more good week and get you guys some trophies here. So, yeah, let's get into the first game. Starting things off here with the Saints at the Buccaneers. For the Saints, Derek Carr is actually a really solid streaming option for me this week. The Buccaneers pass defense is just absolutely awful. It's a really great matchup to target for opposing quarterbacks. And I think Derek Carr is in a position where he should succeed. He's obviously got Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed both healthy. I think it's going to make it relatively easy for the Saints team to throw the ball effectively, especially against the Buccaneers defense that really plays the run quite well. So I don't think the Saints will be able to lean on Alvin Kamara, at least from a ground game standpoint. That being said, I do think Alvin Kamara is still a high-end running back too. I can't imagine sitting him, but the matchup does scare me a little bit. Just last week, we saw the Buccaneers really shut down Travis Etienne. There is a world that exists here where we see this game get out of hand relatively quickly. I don't think the Saints are good enough to win this game. They're sort of like two teams going in opposite directions. The Buccaneers are trending upwards. They're playing really well. The Saints just haven't been playing all that great. They just got effectively blown out on the road against the Rams last week. So that obviously wasn't great for Alvin Kamara. He managed to salvage his day with a couple garbage time receptions at the end of the game. But I think that's sort of what you're in line for. You're hoping for receiving game involvement, and that could obviously still happen for him. So I think you're still playing Kamara. Just I wouldn't do it with super high expectations. Chris Olave, he's a must start. Really sort of finally getting the Chris Olave that we drafted over the last month or so. Being hyper targeted, he's very clearly the alpha on this team. I would be shocked if he doesn't go over 100 yards again. He's got a good shot to score a touchdown. You're playing him. Rashid Shaheed, he's a really solid flex option as well. Obviously, high variance for Rashid Shaheed. You're hoping for him to connect on that one big play, but this is a defense you can certainly target. So I'd be playing Rashid Shaheed as a flex option, especially in deeper leagues. For the Buccaneers, Mike Evans and Rachaad White, they're both obviously must starts. They've been fantastic all season. No need to really harp on them too much. There's no way I could imagine you guys are sitting either one of them. Chris Godwin, I think you can flex him. He actually leads the Buccaneers in targets in the season. He's got one more target on the course of the season than Mike Evans. Obviously hasn't turned into the same level of fantasy production as what Mike Evans has given you, but he's involved enough. This is a team that will need to throw the ball just a little bit. I think you can certainly play Chris Godwin, but he is like a lower tier flex play. It's a PPR format only kind of guy for me, just not someone that I would expect a big game from, but he's not going to goose you either. He'll certainly give you some performance. And then Baker Mayfield, last guy I want to talk about for the Buccaneers. He's a streaming option for sure, but I do think I prefer Derek Carr in this matchup. I think in general you can find better options. In one league, I've sort of been streaming between Baker Mayfield and Matthew Stafford over the last several weeks. I'm going to be playing Matthew Stafford in my fantasy finals this week. So that's sort of the range I think the Baker's in. It was obviously not an easy decision to go at Stafford there. I could potentially still switch there, but I'm definitely pretty confident I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford this week. I think that's about the range that Baker belongs in right now. Next game is going to be the Patriots at the Bills. For the Patriots, Ezekiel Elliott, he's a rock solid running back too. Ramondre Stevenson was placed on IR. It's going to be Ezekiel Elliott the rest of the season. He's getting a ton of volume. Obviously caught 9 passes last week. He's just a workhorse in this backfield. Really the only reliable weapon this offense has. So I think there's just no way you're sitting Ezekiel Elliott. Just too involved. Just definitely going to put him in your lineup as like a rock solid running back too, with potential RB1 upside if he can find the end zone. Mario Douglas, he's a low end flex play for me. Obviously, it's a PPR format only for me as well. He's not going to operate too far downfield. Don't think he's got a very great shot of scoring either, but he could catch 5-6 passes in this one. So if you're in a full PPR format, you can flex him if you want to, but I'm not going to play any of the Patriots. Hunter Henry could return from injury. If you're really desperate at the tight end position, you could look there. Devonta Parker has been involved. I don't really want to play him. So I think it's just going to be Mario Douglas maybe, and then Ezekiel Elliott, and that's it for the Patriots. For the Bills, Josh Allen, obviously a must start. He got you here. You're playing him for sure. James Cook, he's a running back 2 for me, but I am a little bit less optimistic than a lot of people in the industry. Just the matchup is not great. Obviously, this Patriots run defense has been fantastic over the course of the season. Leonard Fournette also found himself on the field for the Bills last week, and it did genuinely cut into James Cook's workload a little bit. Obviously, Latavius Murray still sees the field as well. So it's a 3 running back backfield now, obviously led by James Cook, but this is a really good Patriots defense. I don't obviously ever really want to bet on a James Cook touchdown. So you're really just hoping for receiving game involvement. He should have that. So I think you could still play him as a running back 2. Obviously more valuable in a PPR format, but just not someone that I'd be super confident in for sure. Stephon Diggs, obviously, we've got to talk about him. I know it's been absolutely brutal. He's like the wide receiver 60 over the last 5 weeks. And honestly, he did the same thing last season. So it's really tough to really dig into that too deeply. But I do think you need to start Stephon Diggs. If you look at his last 4 matchups against the Patriots, he's dominated the Patriots each and every time they've met. He's obviously still an elite wide receiver. I know things haven't worked out, but he's still commanding a pretty healthy target share. This Patriots defense is actually not great against opposing wide receivers in terms of limiting fantasy production. I think you're still playing Stephon Diggs. I know it's scary. It helps you with any context. I'm in a dynasty league. I made the finals with him. I'm starting him over 4 other relatively reasonable options would be Josh Jacobs, Najee Harris, Cortland Sutton, and Tyler Lockett. I'm playing Stephon Diggs over all of those guys, so you'd have to have at least a better option than one of those guys for me to even consider benching him. Dalton Kincaid, he should be on benches. I know he had a really hot stretch, and he's really, I still think he's a very talented player. He's the most talented tight end they have on the roster, but he's playing less than 50% of the snaps lately. Just not someone we can trust in lineups, although I do still think he's got a good future in the NFL. Gabe Davis, obviously, he's the riskiest play ever, but he's an option if you find yourself as a significant underdog. Really just need some juice. He's obviously got ceiling that a lot of players don't have, so you can play him for sure, but just understand that if you're doing that, you need to be prepared to eat a 0 as well. So it's really wide range of outcomes for him. I wouldn't be super confident in it at all. Next, we got the Cardinals at the Eagles. Despite battling an illness this week, I still think Kyler Murray is a solid streaming option. He hasn't practiced yet this week, but he was at practice at least, just didn't participate. I expect him to play. This is a really favorable matchup for opposing quarterbacks. You can throw the ball really effectively against the Eagles. I think Kyler Murray's going to be a guy that can easily give you 250 and 2 this week. So he's obviously going to offer some on the ground as well. I think Kyler is a fringe top 12 play this week. James Conner probably needs to be in lineups. He's just been fantastic lately. I can't imagine sitting him. Trey McBride, he's a must start. Again, this is the team you can throw against in Philadelphia. Trey McBride should have quite a bit of success. The Eagles have been absolutely awful against tight ends on the course of the season. I can't imagine sitting Trey McBride this week. But I would sit the Cardinals wide receivers. I do think that one of them probably ends up having a good game between Marquise Brown, Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson, Rondale Moore. There will be some fantasy relevant performances from one of them probably, but I can't honestly tell you which one. I would bet it being Marquise Brown if he returns for action, but I just don't want to bet on it. I just prefer to sit this one out there for the Cardinals wide receivers. For the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, DeAndre Swift, and Dallas Goedert. Honestly, all need to be in lineups. I know that it's going to be really difficult for all 5 of those guys to perform because this is probably going to be a game the Eagles find themselves up pretty early in. I think that if I had to really, I can't imagine benching Hurts. You're obviously starting Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. DeAndre Swift, this is an awesome matchup for him. We talked about it all season on several of the trade videos as well, how he was a really favorable target for the playoffs. Obviously came through last week with a touchdown against the Giants. He's clearly the number 1 running back. This is one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. I can't imagine seeing Swift. Thank God it's been involved as well. So I think you're just playing all 5 of them. I'm sure 1 or 2 of them won't come through with a great game, but the matchup is great. It's set up for them. I think you just have to play them all. And they kind of game well. If you're in a super desperate situation, I could see him putting together a good game. If this game ends up being a blowout for Philadelphia, Kenneth Gainwell could find himself on the field quite a bit. And this is, like I said, a really bad run defense in Arizona. Kenneth Gainwell could break off a couple chunk plays. I think if you're in a super deep league or just in a really bad spot at running back, you need a flex or need a running back too. I think you could look there, but I don't think he's a top 20 player. I think he's probably like a running back 30 or 40, but I do see an avenue for him having a good game here. Next, we got the Panthers at the Jaguars. I honestly don't hate it if you want to sit every single Panther. Chuba and Thielen would be the only 2 that I even look at. The Jaguars have a really good run defense, which makes it a little bit tougher for me to consider playing Chuba, but he is pretty clearly the workhorse running back for them at this point. He's their best running back. He's being given a ton of work. I think he's a super low-end running back too, but not one that I'd be super excited about. You're just hoping he falls in the end zone. And Adam Thielen obviously just hasn't been great since the bye. I don't really know if I can trust it, but it is a favorable matchup for wide receivers. You could play Adam Thielen. I'm not going to chase the DJ Chark performance. He obviously had 2 touchdowns against the Packers last week. Green Bay is just one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. It's the only performance DJ Chark has had this season. It just seems a little bit foolish for me to consider playing DJ Chark this week. For the Panthers, Travis Etienne, he needs to be in lineups despite busting last week. I know it was really rough for managers last week, but you made it through with him. He's obviously a very talented running back. This is one of the worst run defenses in the NFL in Carolina. I think you're in a position here where Etienne could easily put up a big performance, and I wouldn't be scared about it. So you're playing Etienne for sure. Calvin Ridley, he's a wide receiver 3 for me. Obviously, a lot of variance there. Not a good matchup at all. Carolina doesn't give up a lot of fantasy production to opposing wide receivers just because they get run on so effectively. They get blown out so easily that teams don't need to throw against them. It's not that they can't. This is a must-win game for Jacksonville, actually. They haven't performed very well. They've lost 4 straight. Obviously need to get back on track. There is Trevor Lawrence and his injury status hanging up in the air. If we end up getting CJ Beathard, I don't think I'd be looking for Calvin Ridley as someone that I want to start. But if Trevor Lawrence is there, I think you can start him. But just understand, again, the variance in the floor is going to be very real here for Calvin Ridley. Evan Ingram, he's an auto start, been one of the best tight ends in football over the last several weeks. I can't imagine sitting him. He's just been fantastic, super critical to their offense. There's no way you're benching Evan Ingram. But I wouldn't get cute with Trevor Lawrence or any of their pass catchers. I know Zay Jones could return to action. Like I said, don't think the Jaguars will need to throw the ball tons. I wouldn't get cute with any of those options. Then I just want to mention that the Jaguars defense is a good streaming option here. This Panthers offense is just one to target if you want to looking for streaming defenses. I know the Jaguars defense hasn't been great lately, but Josh Allen should produce some pressure. I do think they'll really make Bryce Young struggle, and I think it'd be a good idea to consider playing the Jaguars defense this week. And next, we got the Raiders at the Colts. For the Raiders, Devontae Adams, he needs to be in most lineups. I understand that you probably had a tough time advancing last week with what he did for you guys against the Chiefs. Obviously, I believe this is the true stat that the Raiders did not complete a pass after the first quarter. That being said, they did still win. I don't think this will be a game environment where the Raiders find themselves up 14 for most of the game. They're not going to score 2 defensive touchdowns in 7 seconds. This should be a relatively competitive game for most of it. So I think Devontae Adams is clearly the wide receiver 1 in the offense. You're still playing him for sure. And this Colts pass defense is one that we can certainly exploit. Jacoby Myers, he's a low-end flex play for me. Obviously, it was disappointing if you had him last week. He had 3 catches for 42 yards in the first drive. Nothing in the entire rest of the game. This should be a scenario where the Raiders do need to throw the ball more frequently than they did last week. So I think you can flex him, but it's a PPR play only for me. Not super excited about it, but he's a good player. I think you can use him if you need to. At the running back position for Vegas, Zamir White and Josh Jacobs, they're both great plays for me, depending upon who's active. If Josh Jacobs is inactive, I think Zamir White is really honestly a top 15 play. He's looked great. This Colts run defense is not good. I'm definitely starting Zamir White if Josh Jacobs is inactive. If Josh Jacobs returns, I'm a little bit more hesitant there. Just with the contract situation, it makes a lot of sense for the Raiders to just take a peek and see what they have in Zamir White. Or just get more film for Zamir White. Obviously, they've seen great things out of Zamir White the last couple of weeks. Makes me think more and more that Josh Jacobs won't be returning to Vegas next season. And if that's the case, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to just get more work out of Zamir White. Why would they even really look to see what they have in Josh Jacobs if they're considering moving off of him? So I think there's a little bit of a concern there for Josh Jacobs. I don't want to get too cute here. I think if you have him, he's a solid option. Like I said, in that one dynasty league, I'm playing Stephon Diggs over him. I will be benching him. I've also got Raheem Mostert in that league, so I'm benching him for the 3 running backs I'll be starting in that league are CMC, Saquon, and Mostert. So I think all those guys are better plays than Josh Jacobs this week. So just keep that in mind. I think you can play Josh Jacobs if he's active, but I don't think the ceiling's necessarily there. I do think he'll not have that full workload that he's had over the course of the entire season. I also want to mention that the Raiders defense is in play here. This Colts offense has struggled a little bit lately, especially if Michael Pittman's inactive. Should be tough for the Colts to move the ball against this defense. Obviously, Max Crosby's wreaking havoc. They're scoring touchdowns on defense as well. I think the Raiders defense is an option for sure. As is the Colts defense in this one for sure. Outside of that, for the Colts, Jonathan Taylor, he's a must start. Zach Moss is practicing this week, but we don't know for sure if he'll be active. And even if he is, I'm still playing Jonathan Taylor for sure. He's just too talented, and this isn't a matchup that necessarily scares me. Michael Pittman, he practiced in full today on Thursday, and I would definitely start him if he's active. You should be able to throw the ball relatively effectively against the Raiders. Michael Pittman's been a rock star. He's super involved in the offense. There's no way I'm sitting him. But if Michael Pittman does sit, I do think Josh Downs is a solid flex option, maybe very necessary to the offense. The Colts would probably lean relatively heavily on their running game, try and limit their passing opportunities this game. But I still think Josh Downs could find himself targeted enough that you can play him. So I think that's really about it, though, for the Colts. I'm not going to get cute with Gardner Minshew or anything this week. So that'll do it for the part 2 starts and sit video for the championship week. Tomorrow, you guys will get the final 6 games. So anybody I haven't touched on, either this video or the one that came out yesterday, I'll be touching on in the following video tomorrow. So stay tuned for that one. I highly recommend that you guys watch all 3 videos. Should help get you guys as informed and stuff as possible in terms of how I'm feeling about all these players. But then, of course, if you guys do have any specific questions, just let me know in the comments. It's a lot of fun interacting with you guys. Want to do everything I can to help close out some championships for you guys. So it's been a lot of fun this season. Glad we made it so far. I've got 2 championship matchups this week. I'm in 2 championships out of 7 leagues. So haven't been quite as dominant in the playoffs as I was in the regular season. Made 6 of 7 playoffs, and they've just been slowly dropping over the course of the playoffs. But hopefully you guys are performing well. Should be a lot of fun, and just really appreciate all you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching, and let's get one more championship this week. Thanks. Peace.